Hey guys, today we're going to be going over section 11.4 of your notes. Now, this section is going to be going over two-way tables. So just to catch everything up, we started looking at how to talk about data. So first we talked about how to represent data, and that was mean, median, mode. And then we looked at frequencies and histograms, and that was to really look at how the spread of data is. Now we're going to be analyzing data within categories. So what that means is, and you'll see as soon as you get into this section, two-way tables means now we could be, so before we were like talking about one data set, like the height. I go back to height a lot. So we were talking about the heights of kids. But now we could separate the heights of freshmen and the heights of seniors, the heights of boys, the heights of boys, the heights of girls, however you want to separate it. So you can have subcategories inside this. That's what this whole section is going to be about. And so now I'm going to use the book a lot for this just to go through. I've been doing that a little more lately because I just want to help you guys be able to take your own notes. Now that we're really getting into this remote learning a little bit more, I want you to be able to learn how to start taking your own notes, and it'll be good practice if you ever plan on taking classes online. So let's just get into this right now. We will look at the beginning of it. So here's all your definitions. You can always look those up. I didn't check these ones this time. And this section, I'm not going to lie, there's a lot of definitions in this. Some of these, just to remember what they are, you need to think of the words individually, okay? And I'll try to explain where they came up with these names as we go through. I'm not going to try and do it all right now because it makes a lot more sense when you hear me using the name in context, okay? Some of them you just got to memorize. You got to make a note card and go through. But let's start looking. Okay, so you can see here how we were talking about a two-way table, okay? So I'm not going to worry about their definition yet. You can copy that down. But when you have a two-way table, so we're talking about mobile access, so who can get to a mobile phone, and class. I assume that's what we're talking about, mobile access. It could have been cars, I don't know. But we have mobile access, okay? And then class, we're breaking up freshmen, sophomores. So mobile access, you can answer yes or no. And then freshmen, sophomores, okay? And this actually is enough data to talk about everything that we're going to be looking at. So if we just look at it individually, 55 freshmen said yes, 22 freshmen said no, 63 sophomores said yes, 12 sophomores said no, okay? So that talks about your joint frequency. And you can see everything here for joint frequency, okay? And then we're going to look at something called marginal frequency. Now, marginal frequency, it's when you want to look at the group, okay? So let's just say how many people said yes, right? How many people said yes regardless of whether they were a freshman or sophomore? That is a marginal frequency. It is this whole margin tied together, okay? So you just take 55 plus 63. If I want to know how many freshmen were surveyed, it'd be 55 plus 22. If I want to know how many sophomores were surveyed, 63 plus 12. How many people said no regardless of class, 22 plus 12. So the joint is like each individual square. The margin is when you add them all up, okay? Not all of them up. You add them up in a row, and I should go this way, row or column. Remember, rows go horizontal, columns go vertically. And then this one is a click-through example. It really takes you through. This is no more than just the meat and potatoes of this. And that's really what I want you guys to understand about the beginning of this right now. So this works well. So you see how you have your joint frequency. Remember, frequency is how often something happens. So think of a joint as like a piece. So here is a joint frequency, a joint, a joint, a joint. Marginal is when you put them together. So your marginal frequency of freshmen is 77. Remember, how many times did freshmen get counted? 77 in total. How many freshmen said yes? Well, that takes two things. You have to join two things together. Margin, you ever think of like when someone says write something in the margin, you can go to the side or you can go to the top. This side is how many? 77. How many people said yes? 118. How many people said no? 34. So I just want to make sure that that is very, very clear. So a joint frequency is when you join the two concepts, freshman and yes. Marginal is just when you use one concept, okay? How many freshmen? Freshman, yes, joint. Freshman, marginal, okay? Hopefully that's pretty straightforward. And that's, like I said, these are definitions. Once you know the definition, that's the hardest part of this section. Luckily, since you guys are doing this remotely, you'll be able to look this up as you go through. And I'm really hoping as you look it up, don't just look it up and go, oh, here's my answer. Look it up and talk to yourself just like I was just talking. That way you'll remember it for later on, okay? Now, that one was pretty easy, so I'm actually going to move on to the next exam, or exactly, excuse me. Yeah, so now making a two-way table. Now, the making of the two-way table is pretty straightforward. I'm actually going to use, I thought we had this one on our paper here. I don't have it, so I'll probably end up using a whiteboard a little bit just to copy down what they have and go through it. Because I kind of want to explain the thinking behind as you guys do it. So we're comparing sports, instrument. Do you play a sport? Do you play an instrument? This just personally, on a personal note, I am very, very jealous of anyone that can play an instrument. I played some sports in high school, and I really, really wish I would have learned to play an instrument. Okay, I apologize. I am just writing this down right now, and let's hope that my purple works. Okay, so let's see what they get. So I am not going to use any of their stuff from here on out. I am going to switch to, I believe I do have this one written down. Yes, I do. So I'm going to switch my camera so you can see my hover cam. So this is how I'm going to start building it. So how did I build this? It said we had to conduct a survey, right? So the survey that asked 286 students in your freshman class whether they play a sport or a musical instrument. Notice I didn't use freshmen and sophomores or anything like that because we only talked about the freshman class. So the two things I'm comparing are, did you play a sport? Did you play an instrument? Okay, that's our two-way table. Now there is one thing they already told us, right? They told us how many people in total. So when I look at this, these are my joint frequencies. These are my marginal. And then remember, your marginal always have to add up to your total number of people. So 286. And I'm sorry, you can't really see that with the camera. There you go. So you see how I have 286 written down here? That is the total number of people that took the survey. Now we'll fill in what we can, and then we'll just keep going back to fill in all the rest. So 118 of the students play a sport. Okay, we know 118 people play a sport. I can fill that in somewhere, but I don't really know where to fill that in yet, so I'm just going to keep going. 64 of those students play an instrument. Okay, 93 of the students do not play a sport or an instrument. Organize the results in a two-way table, include marginal frequencies. So I'm just going to fill in everything I can fill in as we go. 118 students play a sport, 64 of those play an instrument. So remember, it said how many people play a sport, right? 118. So sport, yes. Okay. But if I play a sport, does that mean that both of these are 118? No. It means 118 people said yes to the sport. Okay. 64 of those students play an instrument. Okay. So that means if you play a sport and you play an instrument, okay. So here I have 64. Makes sense? Yes, they played a sport, but yes, they played an instrument. Let me see if they gave us any more. 93 of the students do not play a sport or an instrument. So now we know 93 kids do neither. So that's right here, right? 93 kids did neither a sport nor an instrument. Now, believe it or not, we have everything we need to fill in this entire thing. A lot of this is going to be fill in, go back, fill in, go back. So it's going to take a step at a time. So let's just think about this logically. This is the total number of people that took the survey. 118 is the number of kids that play sports. So I need to go in and take 200, and I'm sorry, I'm getting out my calculator right now. We should be doing this by hand, but I'm trying to do this quick. 286 minus 118 is 168. So now we have our ideas for all our sports, right? How many people played sports? 118. How many kids did not play sports? 168. How many total kids were surveyed? 286. Now I can fill in everything else. If 118 kids said yes to playing a sport and said yes to an instrument, well, out of these 118 kids that played sports, 64 said yes to an instrument. So let me see if I can get my phone in here and if it looks okay. 118 minus 64 should give me the number of kids that played sports but did not play an instrument. 54. See that? So if you have two of the categories, you can always fill in the third. It doesn't always have to be this plus this is that. We know this plus this is that, so that implies this column, this cell minus this cell would equal that cell. Okay. So now you get to pick and choose. I'm going to choose to fill in right here, but you notice you could fill in right here also, right? You can just add those up. But now I'm going to use the same concept. If I now know 168 kids said no, and 93 of the kids said no to neither, well then, how many kids said no to playing a sport, but yes to playing an instrument? That would be 168 minus 93. So 168 minus 93, 75. So really what we have here, this is a logic puzzle, okay? Now we can fill up the rest. 64 plus 75, 139. 54 plus 93, 147. Now let's double check all of our work because everything should be interconnected, right? If 286 total kids were interviewed, they were asked whether or not they played an instrument. Your only answer was yes, no. So these two cells had better add up to 286. So 139 plus 147, 286. Over here, your only answer to sport could be yes or no. So 118 plus 168 had better equal 286, and it does. So let's go back over how all of this matches up. We know this cell plus this cell equals that cell. Or in other words, this cell minus either one of those would give us the other one. Okay? And that really is how we used it horizontally, vertically. But you have to know both of these add up to that, both of these add up to that. And that goes back to the marginal that we just talked about in the previous example. So I'm not really going to build into that too much. But what I do want to do is go back now and look at the page because I think this one is good enough to go over a monitoring progress. So let's do one more of these together. I know this one's kind of dragging on a little bit. I apologize. But I really want you to be able, if you can build a two-way table, you'll understand a two-way table. Okay? So you survey students about whether they are getting a summer job. 75 males respond with 18 of them responding no. 57 females respond with 45 of them responding yes. Organize the results in a two-way table, include marginal frequencies. So, like I said, what you do is you fill in what you can, go back, and whenever you have two out of the three, it's either a row or a column. You can always figure out the other one. But you got to be able to figure out two, okay? And what happens is after you figure out one, well, that gives you an extra piece of information, so then you can figure out another. It's a logic puzzle. That's all it is. So we're going to fill in to here everything that we can. So 75 males respond with 18. Okay, so male. Let's see. Where do we have a male category? Right there, gender, right? So there's male. And where's the total males? Right there. So that should be our 75. Okay. With 18 of them responding no. Okay, so males getting a job, 18 said no, right? Well, let's think about this logically. If there's 75 in total, 18 said no, how many must have said yes? So 75 minus 18, we are at our 57. Okay, see how this starts to flow pretty quickly? All right, 75, 57. Okay, so now we have 57 females respond. So now you see I can fill out the female total. Over here we have 57. 45 of them respond yes. Organize the results into it. Okay, so now we have everything to fill everything out. 57 total, 45 said yes. 57 minus 45 gives us our 12 that said no. And then we can get all of our totals. So how many total people said yes? 57 plus 45. 102. How many total people said no? So again, another marginal frequency. 18 plus 12 gives us our 30. And then let's make sure this works. So shouldn't the total people that got interviewed for a summer job equal the total people that had a gender? Because that's the total people that were asked about this. So 102 plus 30 is 132. 75 plus 57 better be the same thing. And it is. So since we got 132 for both, we're probably sitting pretty good, unless we made the same mistake twice, which I would hope not. Now, I want to use this problem to talk about. Actually, I'm going to cut this here because this is starting to get a little longer. I'll keep going in the next clip. I apologize for you still having to stare at me, but it takes me a second to get back to this and shut it off.